So this Sikha is from Chelik Chaf Tes. It's Sikha on Shoftim. It's here again we see a case where the Rebbe takes a medrash, an agadata, and he goes ahead and he starts explaining it. First of all, the first half of the Sikha is Pasha to be able to understand the Pshat and the agadata. What's it? How does it make sense? What does it fit? What's it trying to say? Which again, this is not such a common thing that, some Mefarshim will sometimes, go and try to figure out certain particular parts of the Agatha. But here the Rebbe takes the whole Medrash trying to understand it. And then, the second half is like the whole thing according to Chassidus. And again, it's a very Geshmaka thing. One of the Geshmaka in Yonim over here in the Sikha is that usually in Chassidus, it talks about the Maila of Naaseh over Nishma. Yigdimu Naaseh Nishma. Here the Sikha is going to talk about Naaseh and Nishma, and he's going to connect it with Shoftim and Shotrim, and he's going to say that really Nishma has a very special Maila, in some ways even higher than Naaseh. So it's like also a very different type of approach. Al Apostle Shoftim and Shotrim Titin Lacham Never Medrash Rabbim Amar Rebbe Ma Dover Doimem the Melech Shoyle Banim Harbe Vay Oyves Hakotten Yosef Mekulo Vahoyle Pardes Echad Vay Oyavoy Yosef Mekul Mashahoyle this Pardes. So he had a child and he had a Pardes, and both of them he loved the most. Amra Melech Noisna Nias a Pardes Azeh Shani Oyavoy Mekul Mashi Yeshli Lebni Hakotten Shani Oyavoy Mekul Banim. Kach Amra Kadosh Baruch Hu Mekala Mishabarasi Eine Oyev Elul Yisrael. Shenamar Kinar Yisrael Voyavei. Umekal Mashabarasi Eine Oyev El Asadin. Shenamar Ki Ani Hashem Oyev Mishpat. Therefore, Amra Kadosh Baruch Hu Nois Nani Masha Hafti La'am Shani Oyev. Have, that's why it says in our parsha, Shoftim v'Shoftim Titin L'cha. That's part of the Eibishter's Ava for us. So the Rebbe asks a few questions. Ein move. Aleph. Tafkido shal mashal hu lahoisef hezber ledvarim shebenimshal. Umam moisef ha-mashal binyaneinu lemelech shayle banim harbe v'hoyle pardas achad alam nimshal. In other words, you're saying the Eibishter loves Mishpat and the Eibishter loves the Yidden. Okay, fine. That sentence itself makes sense. Why bring a mashal? What is the mashal adding over here that we wouldn't understand in the nimshal itself? It's not like a difficulty. If you would say, I have something special and I'm going to give it to someone I hate, so you say, well, it doesn't make any sense. I got to bring a mashal. But it's very logical to say that something that I love, I give to someone that I love. So why even bring a mashal? Base. Madua muva hamashal davke doime lemelech. Vari davar pasha to be yoser v'isnag zu kayemes etzel kol adam. By the way, it's an interesting thing. Later the Sikha is going to explain why Takim Melech. All these things are going to become explained. But in other places in Chassidus, I remember it's a lot of times where he brings a mashal a melech. For example, if I remember correctly, right away at the beginning of Ranat, it says over there, the idea of Shitafim, Midas Hadin, Midas Harachmim, Mashal Melech, that he had something to pour in. If I'm going to pour into the cups Chamin, it's going to become this Bakim, and if it's going to pour Tzainon, it's going to come dirty or whatever. Hareinim Arav Shneim. So over there also, why Melech? So a lot of times, Mishalom and Chassidus will use the term Melech, and I remember Mashpim talking about it. And he said, because that's the way it's not mitzvah inyan. Now, mitzvah inyan is we're talking about the Eibishter. The Eibishter is a melech, so he uses the concept of melech. But the Rebbe is not happy with that. The Rebbe wants to talk and see how this is specifically shaykh to the idea of melech. Gim ketzad masim loymar mikol mashabarasi eini oyhev ella es hadin. Ahava for din, that's what he loves. Amnam hadin hechreichi letzorich kiyum ha'olam. V'lechein ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu mevater al isnagus haseteres ledin. If the world doesn't act in a way of din, the Eibishter is not happy, and he takes them to task. Ach ketzi yitachin loymar shemikol mashabarasi eini oyev elos hadin. That's like the strongest exclusion. As if there's nothing like din. Din is necessary. Din you need to have. But it's the thing. Dalet. Min ha-moshel hoya oyeves ha-kotten yoser mekulam. Muvan shechavivusam shel Yisrael. Am shani oyev more than the ummas ha-olam. Shebeschusa noisen lam HaKadosh Baruch Hu es ha-mishpat. Doime davke lechavivus shel ben kotten. Mishum kach muva benimshel davka apose kinar Yisrael v'oyhaveyu. Because nar indicates that katnus. Vein muvoim psukim hamayfim lifnechem b'Torah. The Medrash could have brought earlier psukim. There are psukim that talk about the av of the Eibishter to the Yidden without emphasizing that they are nar. For example, it says me'avas Hashem eschem or ke'ahevcha Hashem lekecha v'chadoyme. Because over here, in this Medrash, it's not just tam the Ava of the Hashem to the Yidden, but mitzad that they are a cotton. Ki be'inyan zeh shel nesinas adin u'mishpat chashuva davka chavivus, mishum sheYisrael heim nar, meaning a ben cotton. So the Rebbe asks, okay, fine, we've established that. But why? It's actually, should be just the opposite. Mishpat and cotton really don't fit. V'lechura nira hepech hamishpat shoftim v'shoftim titen lecha kasher davke legedula b'ofen klali. U'v'myuchad gedula b'seichel k'divrei Rambam ein mamidim b'Sanhedrin al anoshim chachamim u'nevoinim muflagim b'chapos ha-Torah b'alidei meruba shenamar v'yisyatzu sham imach b'doy malach. Why does it say imach? To tell you there has to be something that's similar to you. L'Moshe, similar to Moshe b'chachma chulu. So how does that have to do dafka with a cotton? I'm going to give mishpat to a cotton. It's like saying I'm going to point a cotton to the Sanhedrin. That doesn't make any sense. The same thing. I love mishpat, so I'm going to give it to the Yidden because they're a cotton. No, I should give it to them because they're bali seichel, they're am chacham v'novin. That's the reason why I should give them the mishpat. Yeshloimar shahezbel kachu b'pashtas yotzim shedavka kesher shel mishpat liYisrael einoi chazek kol kach. That is the point that he's saying over here in the Medrash. He's saying, from everything that I love, I don't love anything as much as I love Mishpat. That means that Mishpat has a greater chshivus than all Torah mitzvahs. Amna magid varal Yankov chuchu Mishpatov elu hadinim liYisrael davke. That it says that it's davke, who does he give the mishpat to Yidden? Ach bekol zois, gam umas ha'olam nitztav al adin, shvi echad misheva mitzvah nitztav neim noyach, v'anemar b'Torah u'mishpatim bal yedom. If you're telling me that goyim also have mitzvah sheva mitzvah noyach, they have v'tzivuyan dinim, so why does it say mishpatim bal yedom? That the goyim do not know about mishpatim. Goyim also have mishpatim. They also have dinim. It's part of Shav Mitzvah Noach. So the Chazal explained it. Hu rak legabe digduke hadin. That when it comes to digduke hadin, the general dinim, goyim also have. But the details of the dinim and so on, that's mishpatim bal yidom. That's something that the goyim do not have. So because goyim also have it, so you might think that the mishpatim that the goyim have is like our mishpatim. Comes Rab Levi and says differently. Valkach Amar Rab Levi she'inyan hu lahepech hamishpat chaviv b'yoser et HaKadosh Baruch Hu af yoser mikol mashu barasi u'mishum kach hu nitten davke la'am shani oyev v'lochein yoytze she'hamishpat shayach liYisrael yoser min yonim acherim shel Torah mitzvahs. In other words, like this. We would think that it's not that way. We would think that Mishpat is Shaykh by Goyim also. Comes Reb Levi and says, no. But the question is, why? That Goyim also have Mishpatim. Like we said before, a mashal comes to explain something that's a difficulty. If there wouldn't be a difficulty, we wouldn't need a mashal. This is the difficulty, this is the problem that the mashal comes to explain. Very interesting. This is Pardes. Kasher adgoshi dafka al Pardes. Hahevdom in Pardes lebein sodehu. Sha Pardes matzmiach Peres. What's the idea of Peres? She'einam muchrachim letzoyrach kiyum achayis. Ve'einon el lisanik behem. It has nothing to do with you don't live off of a Pardes. That's not what a Pardes is meant for. But oida shebesodet zemachas be'iker tvuah, she mustn't hechrechil letzoyrach kiyum chayusam. So, and we see actually a lot of times that the Medrash actually uses Mashalim of Sadis. Mashal to someone that had Sadis, Harbe, or whatever. So he could have very easily used the Mashal of a Sadis. Here he dafki used the Mashal of Pardes because it's negayah to be able to understand our Indian over here. The Kach Mavir Rabbi Levi, she'ein meduber kan al Mishpat stam. Shari ya Mishpat by from klali hechreichi letzoyrech kiyum ha'olam kidleil, and that goyim lahavdil have also. El meduber kan al sug miyuchad shal Mishpat, shu bedoime lepardes shemevil de tainug. This is a Mishpat that brings the Eibush to tainug. V'lechein mudgish v'pasuk ani Hashem oyhev Mishpat. Ki davar ha-goyrem le-tainug miskasher le-tchusha shel ava v'chavivus. Part of the question was in the beginning, how does ava apply to din? Din is not something usually you use the word ava in connection with. But if you're talking about a mishpat that causes the Eibishter tainug, so for something that causes me tainug, the word ava applies. That's why it says ani oyev esadin. V'sug miyuchad zeh shel mishpat. That has a special tainug, like a pardes. Aleph, Nitten, Dafkel, Yisrael, and Goyim Lahavdil do not have it. Beis, Nisinose, Kshura, Lakach, She Yisrael, Chavivim, Eis, LaKadosh Baruch Hu, Dafke, Bedoime, La'ava, Leben Kotten, Nar Yisrael, Ve'aveu, Kvish Yuzber Lahal. Hezber Lakach Hu, Benoise HaMishpat, Yesh, Shnei Tchumim. Ukol Shoyna Pasuk, Shoftim, V'Shoitrim. Who are the Shoftim? Says Rashi, Dayanim Apoiskum Sadin. V'Shoitrin Haroidim Asa'am Achar Mitzvosam Ad Shekabel all of us Din HaShoifet. L'choyre Yoytze Sheshoftim Heim Emtsoi Belvad Hama'afshir Birur Mishpatei HaTorah Pirsumam V'Kiyumam B'Chaya Yom Yom. In other words, the main thing is doing what's right. The shoftim are there to help you along, but it's not that the shofet itself is a special thing. Kivon she'olli soir safek l'gab havonas mishpat ha'torah. Therefore, yesh tzorech b'shoftim dayanim ha'mevarim es din ha'torah. V'chein drushim shoitrim ha'mivim l'dei kiyum psak hadin v'mishpat l'maisa ad she'yikabel lovas hadin.
Din ha'shofet.
Right, din ha'shofet. Lefi zanirem שהשויטרים חשובים מבחינה מסוים מסוים מהשופטים כי הם מביאים לו עיקר והתכל'ס שיקבל אופס הדין. Since, even though he says in Ha'ara 21, he says L'Poyel, the shoftim are more chashuv than the shoiter, and the shoiter is only a shliach of the shofet. But L'Poyel, if all you're looking at is the bottom line, that the din should be fulfilled, so the shofet is only an amtzai, and the shoiter is closer to the goal of the din being fulfilled than even the shofet. And the shofet is only necessary in those cases where it's not clear. But if it's clear, you don't need the shofet. That's the way we would think. But Torah looks at shoftim differently. Ein matarosam barak legalis leyades ha'am b'hayros beruris shel dinim mishpatei ha'torah ela yesh lem gam tafkid mehusi yoyser k'shel ha'atzmo. Uk'fi shemetayr Rambam is based in Haggadah Yerushalayim asher hoya bosis vayisoid lechol ha'shoftim b'chol sha'arecha. So therefore, they have something that really afterwards spreads out in all the Batim Mishpat. Sheheim says the Rambam like this: Iker Torah Shvapeh. The Rebbe is going to be mechalekit into three parts. That's one thing, Iker Torah Shvapeh. The second thing about the Sanhedrin, Ve'mamudei ha'ira. And the third thing about the Sanhedrin, Umehem Chayk Umishpat Yoytze L'chol Yisrael. Rambam mitzayin kan shloisha pratim v'shlovim b'tafkidoi shel bezdin hagadol that the bezdin hagadol has. Aleph, heim iker Torah Shebal Peh. What does it mean, iker Torah Shebal Peh? Kan ein bekavana leTorah kehayra bilvad, ela limud v'hayras, limud v'havanas haTorah. How do we understand what the Torah means? How do we understand when it says the dinim of Eved Ivri? How do we understand what the dinim of Tefillin are? How do we understand whatever it says in the Torah? This is the job of the Sanhedrin in Yerushalayim. Beis, another thing is vehem amudei ha'ira, hatafkid shel birur ha'halacha l'maisa shebetoira, which is ha'ira l'poil. After you explain what the meaning of the psukim are, in other words, they are the ones that were miyasa the Torah Shebal Peh. He brings us in the ha'arib, and he get ikar Torah Shebal Peh. So now there comes what's the practical application. What does this mean? How do you put on tefillin l'poil? How do you put on mezuzah l'poil? What's the din of Eved Ivri b'poil, and so on. Gimel, umehem choykum mishpat yoytze l'chol Yisrael, ha'achrayis lekach shoyros bezni yagil l'chol Yisrael. Then their job is also to make sure that you know about it. It's not just they discuss it over there in Yerushalayim and it remains over there. That's the three inyonim that the Rambam is saying here. Zeu ha'hevdel ben tafkidim shal shoftim b'am Yisrael lebein tafkidam etzel bnei noyach, which the hoishiv dayonim v'shoftim b'chol pelach b'pelach. That's the idea of the Sanhedrin had to appoint in every single section, in every single place. They had to appoint also batidinim. Shu hevdel muhusi b'yoser, between the courts by the Yidden and the Bezdin by the Goy. Tafkidam shal shoftim v'adayonim shal bnei noyach hurak lodun b'sheish mitzvos elu of the Sheva mitzvah bnei noyach ulahazir asam. It's probably the sheish mitzvos elu is because the seventh mitzvah is the dinim. So that's what's talking about the sixth. I didn't look up the Lashon the Rambam again. Hadinim nitmon b'shleimusam. They don't need a Sanhedrin to tell them what and how the Sheva Mitzvos Bnei Noach applied. They were given the exact Sheva Mitzvah Bnei Noach. Now their Bezdin has to make sure, okay, you did the right thing according to the Sheva Mitzvah Bnei Noach, or you did the wrong thing according to Sheva Mitzvah Bnei Noach. That's what the Bezdin by the Sheva Mitzvah Bnei Noach has to do. Why? Akiven shekol loikol echad mesugel lahav mesichles hadin la'amita b'koyach atzmai. Or he might not have the time to be able to see how it applies in his case. Yesh tzorech b'dayonim v'shoiftim hamismachim b'proti adinim u'mas'imim l'chol iruas adin hamasim loy. V'chein mishtadlim, another thing that there's by the Bnei Noach that the Bezdin will do, lahavi l'kiyum dinim elu b'poil lahazir asa'am. That's by Goyim. L'umazois tafkidam shal shoftim shal bnei Yisrael hu b'roishu b'rishoyin. It's the first thing that the Rambam mentions. Iker Torah Shebal Peh. HaTorah shebiksav nimsara lahem. The Rebbe's Hadgosh is nimsara, like you give something over and then it's in their control. The Bezdin like has balabatishkeit over it. We'll talk about the Lashon Baila soon. She kedei sheyilmedu v'yefarshu v'yevaru oisa. Torah Shebal Peh. Bekoicham loirak lahavir lalavin dibn b'Torah, ela af lechadish b'Torah, lefi klole ha'Torah kamuvan. Obviously, they can only be mechadish that way. Val kol zeis namar loisasur min hadavar asher yagidu lecha yeminu smoil, on what they were mechadish. You don't have to tell us that if they tell you that this is what's right and what's wrong, loisasur. What's the chiddush loisasur? Obviously, a Bezdin was appointed to be able to tell you, oh, you took money from that guy, you got to pay him back. So you need to have the Torah to come and tell you, that you should give back what you're owed, because the judge tells you to give back what you're owed. You shouldn't say, who's the judge that tells me what to give back what I owe? That's not what Loisasur comes to tell you. The chiddush of Loisasur is on those things that the Bezdin have to learn out by Yudgim Mitzvah Torah Nedreshes or whichever other way from the Torah. So I'm going to say, who are they? I'm going to go ahead and learn out differently. Zoi mashmois ha-medrash, mikol masha barasi eini oyev elas adin. We're talking about this aspect of the shoftim. Shakadosh Baruch Hu Mosar Mishpat Sadin Dafli Yisrael. This is not something else that the goyim have. When they're doing dinim, they don't have this balabatushkeit over Torah. Ein meduber kan ala tafkid shel yishum adin va'mishpat b'ofen klali kfi shekayim gam etzel bnei Noach. El ala chidush shebemishpat havana va'chachma shebetoira shebal peh shehi eino letzorach ha'olam. That's not the type of chiddush of oyev esadin yoiser and more than everything else. Ela ma'alakach ve'ohuv yoiser etz lakadosh baruch hu mikoil masha barasi ve'inyan zanim tzelam Yisrael ka'amr le'il. By the way, the Rebbe says in the Ha'ara 32 a very geshmakev word. He says that in the mashal and in the Nimshal, the Medrash makes a very interesting change. It says that Mashal HaMelech, Shahayalai Ben, Vetzla Yoiser, Mikol Banov, more than, and he had a pardes that he loved, Yoiser, from all of his other chafatzim, all of his other things. But when it comes to the Nimshal, it says that Eini Oyev Ela Yisrael and Eini Oyev Ela Esadin. Could have said Ani Oyev Yisrael Yoiser, Ani Oyev Esadin Yoiser. When you say the lashon of Yoiser means there's some type of erech. So there's some type of erech between the youngest son and the rest of the sons. There's some type of erech between the pardes and the mashal and all the other chafatzim that the king has. But when it comes to the mishpat of the Torah versus everything else, and when it comes to Yidden versus Goyim, there it's not Yoiser, that's Eini Oyev Ella. It's completely Shaloi B'erech, it has no shaykhs whatsoever. I say, Lefiza Yuva Madu Akshur in the Sinazu, L'chavivusim Shal Yisrael Davke, Kenar Yisrael, Bebirur Halachas Shebetoira, Yesh Tzoyrech Be'ikr Begadlus Bechachma, Kamer Le'il. Ach mesiras ha-Torah de HaKadosh Baruch Hu kiviyachol l'shoftim shel Yisrael ba'ofen she'heim mahavim es ikar Torah shebal peh, not just the birur halacha, birur dat chachma. Here we're talking about the first thing, the ikar Torah shebal peh. That's not because of the chachma of the Sanhedrin. Eina dafke mishum malosam ugdulasam b'chachma el mishum she'Yisrael v'kutchabrichu kol achad she'Yisrael muchadim kiviyachol im noisen ha-Torah v'hamoshol hamasim lakach hu achavivus dafke leben kotten avas ha'av lebnei ha-kotten eina tluya b'maloisav shalaben. Adrabah, it's not his milas, he's a cotton, he doesn't have any milas yet. Shari Yodayin Kotna, l'rak mishum she'a'ava ben im etzem echad. V'kach hu gam benimshol legabe am Yisrael. Kayemes hachavivus li Yisrael mishum yoyse am chacham v'novin. But that's not the Iker connection that the Yidden have with Hashem. Ach ha'ava am mitzvah shal kadosh baruch li Yisrael ein tluya b'malaseim v'chadoymem. Ala be'etzem muhusam heim nar Yisrael. In other words, the dagish is nar. Ubavoida haruchnis meifiag dargazu begoli etz ha'yehudi kashu machshiv atzmai kekot. There's always, in Chassidus, we always find two sides of something. There is the etzem maila that a yid has, and then there's when the maila comes out begoli. So Yidden ba'etzem have that mile nar Yisrael, and therefore the Eibishter gave us the idea of dinim, mishpatim, nimser alonu ha-Torah, that we have the bilas over the Torah to be able to say what is Torah shebal peh, ikar Torah shebal peh, and so on. Then there is when we are megala, that bitul, that nar Yisrael v'aveyu, so then this level becomes goli by us as well. So he says, "Kasher hu machshav atzmi kekotten ba'anove ubislabtus mematim atzmechem va'idekach naisim Yisrael bailim kiviyachol ha'Torah." Like we also find, he brings in the previous Ha'ara, in Ha'ara 34, that the halacha was nikva like Beis Hillel, not like Beis Shammai, even though it says Beis Shammai was more chariv than Beis Hillel, because they had Bitul. It's a very interesting thing. You establish halacha according to Bitul. What does halacha have to do with Bitul? It has to do with how much seichel. We see dafka, the idea of Bitul is where it's mizgala, that connection of the chachmas of the Eibishter over there. V'lochein dafka ha-mishpat kashal li-Yisrael b'yeser atzma b'yeser or oitzma b'yeser oimik mishar and yonah Torah mitzvos ki b'chidur sheb'mishpat misbatas ha-mayla atzmi shel Yisrael be'etzem miyoysa mu'chodem im muhusi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Elekei u'melech ha-mishpat. That's what he's called. He's called melech ha-mishpat. Umekach muvan gam madu muvan moshe dafka melech. One of the questions that he asked at the beginning. Ki benim shel mekablam Yisrael loy davar ragil shu chaviv. Ela davar asher rak b'yecholti shel melech losses. He mekablam as habailus al ha-mishpat. Hanistenes melekei u'melech ha-mishpat. Where do we have the balabatishkeit? To be able to make Torah, to be able to create Torah. Where do we get that balabatishkeit? We get that because it's the Melech himself that's giving us this. Since the Melech himself that's giving us this, we have this balabatishkeit. Hamashmos, and here he's going to get into the idea of Naaseh, Nishma. A lot of this part of Maimer is miyusad on or even some parts that we learned earlier on some very interesting Amar Maqsudas, some from Ayin Beis. So it's really like he's going into, here you see also one of the cases where the Rebbe takes, like in Yom that brought down Chassidus in a very deep way, and he brings it down on a Sikha that it's more moving along. It's the same idea in the Tifs Mamar, but then he brings it down on a Sikha. Hamashmos shetzun el gabi mishpat shekayem es boivim klali b'chol Torah mitzvos kayem es gam b'kiyuma shekol mitzvah fnei atzma aidei kol echad va'achas. Every mitzvah has what he's going to talk about is like a mishpat part and a kiyum part. Let's see it inside. Ha'hezbel kachu ha'hevdol ben shoftim l'shoitrim l'ben shoitrim doime la'hevdol ben Naaseh l'ben Nishma mehusam shal ha'shoftim hi Nishma havonas ha'torah v'mitzvos v'ha'shoitrim meviim l'dei Naaseh asiyah v'poyel koil ma'asem loshen kfiyah that we have always the Maimer Chazal me'asin al tzedakah. You could force a person to give tzedakah under certain circumstances. Shezoi amashmal shel kabbalas oil. That's the idea of shoitrim ma'asem Naaseh kabbalas oil. So asuyim lachshoiv shenishma eina matara kishel ha'atzma elhi me'eina chana l'mitzvah. By the way, in America, I don't think in Eretz Yisrael it's so much a problem, but in America, when, especially in the 50s, the 60s, when we tried to get people to sign up their kids to go to a Jewish school, she said, what does my child have to go to yeshiva? He's not going to become a rabbi. In other words, Nebuch in America, there was a gang, in other words, it's a school for rabbinics. You're going to yeshiva to learn how to be a rabbi. The same thing, al derech zelvi here, the Nishma, the learning, is to know how to do a mitzvah. Comes this whole medrash and tells you no. This idea of Nishma is a maila b'fnei atzmai. Not because it's going to bring you to Naaseh. This is al kach nilmed es hayirah me'amedrash uva la'el sha'kadosh baruch hu mitzaveh shiyu shoftim Nishma ka'avodah b'fnei atzmai. And here the Rebbe brings an amazing thing. In the Seder of Naaseh Koydem Nishma, like we always talk about, wow, we said Naaseh before we would understand, it's a gewaltige Zach. Here the Rebbe is going to bring out the Maila of Nishma because the Seder wasn't this way. Zeu echet has beirem l'Seder beirem musagim. Naaseh v'Nishma, Naaseh Koydem Nishma. Lo rak l'tzoyrech ha-Naaseh kedei shekabolos oil Tia b'mloya toike v'ashleimus. L'loyis arvis shal isbeirim sichlim shal Nishma. In other words, that's why you put Naaseh before Nishma, so the Naaseh should be a pure Naaseh. It should not be with I understand that I figured it out, and I feel that makes sense, and that's why I'm doing it. But if I don't feel that makes sense, then maybe my doing will be schwacher. So that's why we do say Naaseh before Nishma, because we're going with the full toikif. I'm doing it, and my Nishma doesn't make a difference. But there's a deeper in it. Elam gam l'tzoyrech Nishma, the Naaseh says beforehand. Why? Kasher Nishma bo lifnei Naaseh. So then, Yitochen sha'nishma mahava hachona bilvad l'Naaseh limud ha'mevil de ma'aseh. If you say Nishma v'Naaseh, so you think that Nishma is like a hachona l'mitzvah. You need to do Naaseh. How are you going to do Naaseh? You got to learn. You got to have Nishma. But it's not that Nishma by itself has Pesach Shivas. As long as you know what to do, you're fine. That's what we would think if it would say Nishma before Naaseh. Kasher Nishma bo la'achar Naaseh la'achar sha'asiyah kvar hushlama. So why is he learning? You already know how to put on film. You already know how to keep kosher. Why are you sitting and learning Mesachos Chulin? Why are you sitting and learning Hilchos Tefillin? You know how to do it. You've been doing it for 25 years already. Why? Why does the Nishma come after the Naaseh? To show, move on, Nishma ein rak hachona l'Naaseh, ela matora kishel ha'atzma. V'asiba lakachi mushum sha'chaviva shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu liYisrael mushlemes davke kasher kayemes etz Yisrael havona v'asage sichlis b'Torah mitzvos. So that's not the question. All over Chassidus it talks about the mile of Kabbalah soil and the Bitul and Naaseh kohen l'Nishma. What's the havona sichlis? Why is havona sichlis so important? He says that's part of Dir B'Tachtoinim. The real Dir B'Tachtoinim is when it goes choyder my seichel also. Ki nisava HaKadosh Baruch Hu liyas lo Dir B'Tachtoinim shekol ha'tachtoinim or seichel ha'tachtoinim. I don't know exactly. I have to check it back in the Yiddish. Yahavu dira v'klila lakus. Kasher miskayem etzetza Yehudi rak asiya Naaseh Kabbalah soil harem lamrois shebekach misbatas is batluse klapi rotzon Hashem. B'chol zois ein hadavar mashpia v'choyder l'chol mitziyutze b'chol hapratim kol b'kochs hapnimim. Just like we always say, the mile of Chassidus Chabad over not learning Chassidus or over Polish Chassidus, because Chassidus Chabad has the mile that it comes into our seichel, therefore it's mashpia on the kochs hapnimim. Kedei shetushlam hatachlis shel dir b'tachtoinim ein dai bis batluse shel Yehudi klapi rotzon Hashem. Al yesh tzoydach shehu v'chol keichosav yukli v'dira l'kedusha. And when is all of his keichos akeli for kedusha? V'zois davke kasher kayemes etzli gam avona v'asoga b'keichosav apnimim nishma. I like to a lot of times bring a mashal based on what I remember hearing Gail Khan explain a beer in Perek Hey and Tanya that l'chura. When you do a mitzvah, that's l'chura the ikra thing. Why do you have avaviyira and the Chabad that brings to avaviyira and so on? So the point is that if over there in Perek Hey, I think it says shtei nafshi tzrura b'chtzroyer chayim mereishe v'adragla. I think there's a lot like that in that Perek. So it comes out like this: if I just do a mitzvah of Kabbalah oil, as great as Kabbalah oil is, I'm doing it with total bittul, no questions, nothing. Totally, I'm a chayal, I'm a soldier of the Eibishter. But then what am I doing the mitzvah with? Let's say I'm putting on film. So I'm doing the mitzvah with my hand. But what's doing with my heart? Where's my heart in the mitzvah? Where's my head in the mitzvah? They're not there. They're somewhere else. They're in Hawaii. They're on vacation. If I do a mitzvah with a different part of my mouth, I'm davening and I'm davening with my mouth and my head isn't there, my heart isn't there. So again, it's my lips that are doing the mitzvah. When I have Chabad involved, when I have Aviyira, so then it's my whole Metzias that's putting on the film. It's not just my hand. That's what it says. I'm just putting on the film with my hand, but it's my whole entire Metzias that's doing the mitzvah. That's the mile of Nishma. Kishem sheyesh mile. Belimud HaTorah b'ava Naaseh Nishma al-umas kiyum ha-mitzvahs kach yeshnam shnei inyanim elu b'kiyum kol mitzvah atzma. In a mitzvah, there's the Naaseh part of the mitzvah and the Nishma part. Ki yadua yesh b'mitzvah shnei sugim shel kavonos. Echad, ha-kavona ha-klolos. Hazeh b'chol ha-mitzvahs is the same. כנאמר בחלק בנוסח הברכה המופיע בכל המצוות, אשר קידשנו מצוות וציוונו, כי אם רצון Hashem, kabol all mitzvahs. Every mitzvah has a b'shava. I'm doing what Hashem told me to do. Beis, הכוונה הפרטית המיוחדת, הקשור למשמעות המסוימת של מצווה זו, להניח תפילין, ההבנה, הטעם והדעת של המצווה. ודומה לכך שרמ"ח מתעסק כנגד רמ"ח איבורים, שעשה המצווה לא יעשה כנגד שעשה גידים, וכל מצווה מזכחת ומשפיע בעבר המסוים אצל האדם, and he brings also from the Lashon in the Hagdam Sefer Mitzvos of the Rambam that he says over there, that every aver tells the person, did you do with me a mitzvah that I'm supposed to do? So in other words, there's a more specialness and a special understanding that has to do with that mitzvah that's different than the other mitzvah. ההבדל בין שני סוגי כוונות אלו הוא בהסם לשני העניינים שבמצוות. א', רצון השם שבמצוות. That's one thing that there is in the mitzvahs. שבו אין הבדלים ובעניין זה שווים כל המצוות. All of them are the רצון the Eibishter. Tefillin, kasher, mezuzah, Shabbos, it's all the same רצון. Hashem wanted us to do mitzvahs. Base, then there's a einig shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu הפנימיus shel הרצון שבמצוות והeinig ha'elyon shoyne b'chol mitzvah. Why is the einig different? בדומה להבדל שבין הרצון והeinig בנפש האדם. שבכוח הרצון אין הבדלי דרגה. When we're talking about, this is all talking about רצון, that's l'mayla min ha'seichel. Now, רצון is l'mayla min ha'seichel. If I want it, there's no difference. תוקף של רצון זהה בכל הרצונות. ואילו בהרגשת התענוג יש הבדלים שבכל דבר יש סוג אחר של תענוג. Just like we see by ourselves. It's different, the tainug that I have from eating than the tainug that I have from looking at something nice, than tainug from hearing something, a beautiful piece of music. And that itself, it's different, the tainug from eating one type of food than the tainug from eating a different type of food. Or the tainug from hearing one type of music to hearing the tainug from hearing a different piece of music. Tainug is different in everything. ולכן יש מעלה בכוונה הייחודית של המצוות על פני הכוונה הכללית. משום שבו קיים העונג של הקדוש ברוך הוא כאמר לעיל שהנשאב הקדוש ברוך הוא דווקא בדירה בתחתונים הניסנס להשגה באמצעות המשוחס האלוקי גם בפנימיוס כל דבר. So now the Rebbe is going to say, even though we just now explained that we could find this idea also in every mitzvah when you have the kavanah pratis, but still that's not the same like the mila of Mishpat itself, like the mila of Torah itself. אמנם, בכל מצווה קיימת המיילה של משפט מצד הכוונה מיוחדת והמשמעות המסוימת של מצווה זו, אך מיילה זו קיימת באופן מיוחד במשפט כפשוטו, in other words, the Torah, not the כוונה פרוטיס of the mitzvah. שהרי העונג אלה כי המלובש במצווה, בכל מצווה עונג מסוים אחר, הוא האור בלבד מהעונג של הקדוש ברוך הוא, המאוחד המהוסי ועצמוסי יסברך. והרי הקדוש ברוך הוא עצמו, אין בו הבדלים וישחלקוס קדומה, אלא הוא מוקר התענוגים שמשם נמשכת האור במצווה לכל בחינה כמדרגוסה. So the fact that there's in every mitzvah a separate oinig, that itself shows that it's only ha'or of the etzem of the Eibishter. וזהו הייחוד במשפט שופטים ושופטים תיתן לך higher than the kavanah pratis of every mitzvah, שאין הכוונה רק לעניין המסוים של המשפט, which every כוונה is different, אלא לעניין הכללי בקשר לתורה מצוות בכלל, כפי שהוסבר לעיל בהרחבה בסעיף ד'. ולכן נאמר על כך, אני השם אויב משפט, כי כאן אין מסגלס רק האור של עונג העליון, כי בכל מצווה מסוימת, אלא כאן מסגל למקור התענוגים הנשאבים של עצמוסי יסברך. וזוהי הסיבה לכך שהמשפט ניתן לישראל דווקא משום נער ישראל ויביאו. דווקא משום המיילה של הקטנוס ויסבטלוס. Why? Seemingly it's the opposite. So he says, כי ההסקשרוס למקור התענוגים איננה באמצעות עבודה של טעם והרגשת העונג, שבו מורגשת ישוסים צוסי של האדם. If it would be the kavanah pratis of every mitzvah, which is the ha'ara of the einig, so then katnus doesn't apply. Adrabah, I understand, I know. Just like you see by people who understands the kavanas of the different mitzvahs, you got to be someone of a very high level or a lot of ideas that knows the different kavanas. But here we're talking about the makir at hanugim. El lehepech davka de pashtus miskashrim lepashtus amachleta shel maila, and he brings the same famous word to the Baal Shem Tov that it says the pshitas of the ish patris reaches the pshitas of atzmus. Last ois. Ois test. Parshas Shoftim nekras tamid betchilas chodesh el. B'derech klal Shabbos Parshas Re'eh hi adayim b'chodesh menachem av. Shabbos mevorchim shel chodesh el. Or even this year, v'af in Parshas Re'eh nekras b'reish chodesh el mamish. Harezer Yom Harishon Shel Rosh Chodesh, which is technically not El, Lamed Menachem Av. Ve'ilu Aleph Elul Chal Tamid Parshas Shoftim. Umovin she'amar le'il legabe Shoftim kosher b'miyuchad l'chodesh El. She'echad miminhag Yisrael b'chodesh zeh hu tkiyas ha'shofer shel chodesh El hamaschil ba'aleph El. Be'inyan ha'shofer on the moitzim shnei negudim, similar to what we said now, the Mokar HaTanugim with the cotton. Shoifer maloshin shapru ma'seichem. Shapru is in the word also shapir, beautiful, inyan shel tainug. Umitzad sheni, kol ha-shoifer, matalem v'charoda, hepchaim oinig, hayitok ha-shoifer be'ir, v'am lo yechradu, uri yisheni mishinaschem. Al kach mazber tzamach tzedek, shah-shoifer hu b'chinas mokar ha-tanugim, she'ma'al legilu ya-tainug. ומשום כך הוא מטל אימה וחרודה, כי גילוי מקור התענוגים כורח בהסבטלוס כאמר לעיל. כפי שידוע משול שבעל שם טוב על כל השופר הדומה לכל הפושט של בני יחידה של המלך, אשר אביו יכירה בתביעס אין דקולה, about a son that got lost, and he forgot even the language, the royal language that you speak. So he just cried out, and with his voice alone, not saying words, just the voice alone, that's the simple blowing of the shofar. That's like a cotton. It's no seichel. It's not even words. Ach mitzad sheni, shofar maloshen tainug, kivin shezom mekoira tanugim, shemen nimshachem kol sugei tanugim, v'zois b'doimel divrei medrash al Mishpat, shoftim v'shoftim titan lacha, shal kach nemar, Ani Hashem oyev Mishpat v'lachein miskasher adavar Yisrael kefi shem b'matzav shel nar Yisrael v'aveu k'la'el. V'ayidei Mishpat shleimus hadin b'chlal musag ha'yiyud sheboi mistayim ha'medrash, that it concludes, the medrash finishes over there, shemiyad ani goyel eschem gula shleima in the schus of the Mishpat.